These are middle-class Americans who had a good-paying job 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, 6 months ago. These are men and women who over the years have been the backbone of this nation, middle-class America. And yet 143 of our colleagues on the Republican side didn't see it that way. I guess they thought, well, if they don't have any money, they'll go to work. I would ask any one of those 143 to leave here today and go out and see if they could find a job. And if I were an employer and somebody had that amount of compassion, I know where I'd send them. I'd send them out the door and goodbye.
Now, Congressman, you're not talking about one of those big lobbyist jobs. You mean a real job that makes you put your back into it, right? That so many Americans have to turn to be able to meet their daily needs.
Go out. Let's see if you can paint a building.
That's right.
Let's see if you can go out and run a backhoe or dig a ditch or operate a bus or train or whatever. No. And when they lose their job here, as they should, for this vote alone.
Yeah.
They should, for this vote alone, lose their job here. No, they'll go down to K Street and they'll get one of those high-powered office building jobs, and they'll come back and lobby us and try to tell us what we should do. Well, I'll tell them what they should do. They should take a hike right out of this building because they're the super Scrooges of this session.
Well, Congressman, thank you for making those points. I just want to see if I can also get your views, because as we're talking about denying families basic money on right before Thanksgiving, right before New Year's, right before Christmas, night before Hanukkah, night before so many other American holidays, we're also really talking about whether we should extend tax cuts to the top 2%. To the tune of about $700 billion to us, which we don't have and would have to borrow. I wonder if you have any thoughts on this subject.
Well, this is another issue that's going to be before the Congress in the next couple of weeks, and that is, what are we going to do about the 2001-2003 tax reductions that expire on December 31st? Those tax reductions were pushed forward by George W. Bush and the Republicans, who then controlled both this House and the Senate, and they wrote the tax law so that the middle income got a little bit. It was worthwhile. It was a good reduction, but the real reduction went to those with the big bucks, those who had more than $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, $1 billion annual incomes. They got the big bucks, and what happened was, we saw once again the widening of the gap between the working men and women of the middle class and the high and the mighty. The top 1% of this nation now control 70-80% of all the wealth of the nation. They certainly have the big salaries. And do they need a tax break at the expense of an unemployed worker from a factory in your district, an unemployed worker from a factory or from a school in my district? I don't think so. And let's talk about what it is. For those making $1 million a year, the tax cut is worth $83,000 a year. Now you tell me how many out there in middle America are making $83,000 a year. Well, we know that there's 2 million that are unemployed that certainly aren't. But if you took that money, that $83,000, for all those millionaires, you could create 3 million jobs that would pay $30,000 a year. Not a great deal, but a living wage for Americans. 3 million Americans. So we got choices here. We've got choices. You're going to give the wealthy even more, $83,000 a year, and that's just for millionaires. And there are billionaires out there that will make even more out of this tax cut. What are they going to do with it? Well, I guess they could buy a Mercedes-Benz E-Class, which does cost about $82,000. Well, maybe we like to think of them as the next big fat cigar. They could buy 2,000 of those cigars every year for the next decade, and they could light each one of those cigars with a $100 bill. Now, that's a worthy way to do it. Or would you rather have 3 million Americans earning $30,000 a year, or in this case, even an unemployment insurance check?